To record a three-dimensional scene on a two-dimensional surface requires some skill, some insight into both geometry and mathematics. And if we look at sorts of drawings that are done by young children or the cave paintings of our ancient ancestors, it's clear that they didn't have the required insight. The drawings that they do are very simplistic and they don't really capture the third dimension. In fact, it took humanity quite a long time in order to come up with an understanding of how to do this. So this is a painting that I love very much from the early Renaissance era, and it shows very clearly that the underlying geometry and mathematics has been beautifully captured, because when we look at this painting, which is after all only two-dimensional, it inspires in us as viewers a very vivid three-dimensional perception. In order to achieve this realism, we need to understand the underlying geometry. And in this particular drawing here, we can see a lot of the geometric construction lines put in place by the artist in order to ensure that the geometry of the final painting will be correct. This was elevated to a very popular art form in France, and what we see here is what looks like an image of a rural landscape viewed through a stone window in the wall of the building. Of course, this is just an illusion. It is a two-dimensional painting on the wall of a house. This is a modern version of it, a street art version of it, and what this appears to show is a portal through a building beyond which we can see some of the famous New York bridges. But again, it is just a two-dimensional illusion, but this time on a very massive scale. Now, these kinds of illusions are very, very popular, and there are a bunch of people who do wonderful chalk street art. And these illusions have got a very vivid three-dimensionality to them. An enormous amount of work must go into creating these pieces of art. You can't imagine how much chalk is involved in creating an image like this. But what's going on here is that these paintings have all been created in such a way that the stimulus that is generated on the retina of our eyes is exactly the same as the sort of stimulus that would be generated by looking at a real three-dimensional scene. So it's the same stimulus that's applied to the retina of our eye, and our brain is interpreting it in the normal way that it goes about interpreting the three-dimensional world. It understands something about scale, that things that are far away are small and things that are close appear to be larger. So all of the knowledge that we have built up in our brains about the three-dimensional world that we actually live in is tricked into interpreting this sensation in a three-dimensional way. So even if the original scene is three-dimensional, we can still play tricks on our eyes, and at first glance all of these pictures are somewhat surprising. And then the rational part of our brain kicks into play and says, no, the cup can't be that big. It must be that the cup is close and the person is far away. It can't be that the little girl is holding tiny people in her hand. Tiny people do not exist. So it must be that they're full-size people far away and that the girl is close to us. So the initial reaction is one of surprise, but then when we start to reason about it, we understand what's going on in these scenes. And I thought it'd be fun to play this game as well. So here's my friend Chris dancing on the tip of my finger. But of course, Chris is a full-size human being. In fact, he's taller than I am.